I started reading comics at a very young age. My first comic was a चाचा चौधरी comic, जिनका दिमाग कंप्यूटर से भी तेज चलता है. I was probably in class first or second or so, and I was instantly fascinated with comic books. Chacha Chaudhary led me to Pinky, Billu, and all of the other Diamond Comics characters, which then led me to Raj Comics, and I started reading Super Commando Dhruv, Doga, Kobe Bhediya, Bakelal, the whole things. Comics then led me to books, fiction books and stuff, and obviously I got into the world of Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, and so on. Even though I was able to read all of these Indian superheroes and their exploits on a regular basis, I never could read the international superheroes, Batman, Superman, Spider-Man, जिनके ऊपर हमारे Indian superheroes, most of them are based on, sadly. Parmanu is Iron Man, Super Commando Dhruv is sort of Batman but lighter. Doga is kind of a Batman guy, वैसे. Anyway, me coming from a middle class family, Charlie, me, the Chacha Chaudhary comics used to be reasonably priced, and say 5 rupees, 10 rupees. Raj comics were 20 rupees, 30 rupees at that point of time, while a Spider-Man or a Superman, Batman comic would cost 40, 50 rupees, even 60, 70, depending on the store we would go to. So I never was able to read them in my initial years, which I more than made up for once I got into college, and later in my life I got hands on all of these comics through online medium, downloading them. When I started working, I started purchasing those books also to read, and then just to keep the ones that I've already read, just because this was something that I'd always wanted since the beginning of my life, and at least since the beginning of life as I remember it. So these were prized possessions for me. Why I'm sharing this is because 90s, the time that I am talking about when I started reading comic books, was also the time which is known as the golden period of comics, or at least one of the golden periods of comic books, or the industry in general, when both the industries, both of the companies, then DC and Marvel Comics, were trying to outdo each other with their storylines. One was doing Civil War, other one was doing Crisis on Infinite Earth, one was showing the death of Superman and how Bane was breaking the back of Batman. Bane breaking Batman's back was done very superficially in The Dark Knight Rises, and was a very, very bad attempt at bringing it to life. There were really amazing storylines that were going on, and it was just crazy at the amount of things that were happening in comic books at that point in time. So I was, really, really excited when Sam Raimi brought Spider-Man to life for the first time with Tobey Maguire in Spider-Man 1. That was also the time when I was catching up on Spider-Man storylines and all the other international storylines. So I knew pretty much, about the character of Spider-Man to some extent. Although I love all of the 3 movies, I was never a fan of the Spider-Man that was in those movies. The Spider-Man in those movies was a guy he was an emotional character. Things were going down with him. He was a superhero, burdened by the responsibility of superheroism while trying to do good and not being able to justify the things that were happening in his personal life, right? It was all over the place. It was very messy. Emotionally, it was very dramatic. So Sam Raimi brought out the character of Spider-Man, but that was not something that I fell in love with, because the comic book Spider-Man was a funny guy. He would, even though things would never go right with him, even though he was always sad, internally there was this darkness inside of him. Outwardly he was funny, he was trying to pass quips, he was just trying to, be happy in whatever was happening, and trying to always push, keep going, never stopping, while the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man was soppy, crybaby sort of a guy, even though he was very strong internally, character driven, but not the Spider-Man that I fell in love with in comics. So I was disappointed to some extent, even though Spider-Man 2, no questions asked, is one of the best superhero movies ever made. But I would still say that I really like the Spider-Man that was under the influence of Venom in Spider-Man 3 more than the normal Spider-Man. because that came closer to comic book Spider-Man than anything else in the Sam Raimi universe. Sony again rebooted Spider-Man because post Spider-Man 3 there were a lot of issues and Sam Raimi decided to not go ahead with making that movie. Anyway, during Spider-Man 3 also there were massive issues. Sam Raimi didn't want so many villains. Sony producers wanted a lot of villains in the movie, and there was just a lot of behind the scenes issues that were going on, which led to Spider-Man 4 being scraped off. And a few years later, Sony trying to reboot it with Mark Webb and Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone in The Amazing Spider-Man. I really liked this Spider-Man. He was funny, he was creepy, he was generally happy-go-lucky and not a cry guy like Tobey Maguire. However, there were still a lot of criticisms being pointed out at this Spider-Man because people said that he was a bully, he was sort of a superhero, Spider-Man was a normal guy, and Peter Parker was even normal than Spider-Man, while this Peter Parker acted like he owned the world and sort of came across as a bully, which is genuine and fair. But those two movies were really great. I always liked them. Even visually, I think they came to a very high level. Really loved both of them. And then they attempted the death of Gwen Stacy. Now, fun fact about the death of Gwen Stacy is that it is one of a classic, a legendary moments in comic book universe. Gwen Stacy, why is that? Is because Gwen Stacy never came back. Like most of the comic characters who die, they come back in some form or the other, but Gwen Stacy never came back, at least not in canon. There is a Spider-Gwen series and there are other iterations of the character, but not the Gwen Stacy who died. She never came back. So what happened with Gwen Stacy was Green Goblin threw her off of the roof. Spider-Man jumped after her to catch her. Mid-air, he spun his web, and what happened with the web was the web held her by her stomach, by her tummy, and because of that, so it became as a U shape. So the tummy was up and her neck was hanging and her legs were hanging like this, and he had captured her before she fell down, and because of that the tension in his web, she almost touched the ground and she died. In that moment when she died, everything was fine, okay, she was dead, and Spider-Man was really sad and everything. It was just a normal death, very emotional, very traumatic for Spider-Man, but a death. Over the next few issues, Spider-Man started thinking maybe her death was because of the way he spun his web. Her neck may have broken due to the stretch, due to that tension in his web and the way her neck was hanging, or maybe she hit the ground in spite of the webbing. And there was something that he was never able to answer. There was something that always haunted his memories. And seeing the exact same scene being replicated in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 gave me goosebumps. It still gives me goosebumps. That scene came so much of context because of all of the movies that came before it. So Mark Webb is the director of 500 Days of Summer, and he is brilliant with love stories, right? And he did this brilliantly. I can imagine him getting excited about the story arc and wanting to do the death of Gwen Stacy because of everything that was involved in the death of Gwen Stacy, and he did it perfectly. The movies, they may or may not have been great, but the character arc that Spider-Man went through and the death of Gwen Stacy was incredible. That's why I liked that series. But again, the criticisms stayed there. Where Tom Holland Spider-Man, with Marvel making these Spider-Man movies, getting into touch with Sony and taking the rights and sharing the production and the profits of these movies and everything, having a deal, basically Kevin Feige being a god here. making everything work just because he wanted Spider-Man back into the Marvel universe. The backstory of these movies is just it's a work of MBA classroom case studies, how he made it work. Anyway, not getting into any of it. Tom Holland Spider-Man is a school kid, and people didn't really like him for various reasons because again he was so chirpy and nothing really went wrong in his life. Everything was happy-go-lucky in the end. It was more of a college sitcom romance sort of Spider-Man movies with a good happy vibe. He had so many characters around him, Avengers, Iron Man being like a fatherly figure for him. He had so many gadgets. Spider-Man never really used so many gadgets. But this Spider-Man was heavily reliant on gadgets in the second movie especially. And there was this overarching narrative of the Stark Industries or the Avengers that was coming into the Spider-Man narrative, and none of these movies were standalone as of now. As of No Way Home. Coming to No Way Home, Spider-Man finally gets an arc of his own. The payoff of the past two movies of this series finally comes full circle. There is a lot of stuff happening in this movie, but it's handled with so much care, love, and passion for the character. Now you know what they were coming through. These people get the arcs that they deserved. I can't talk about this movie without spoiling much of it. If you know things, if you follow Spider-Man, if you follow Marvel, you would know that whatever is gonna happen, most of it, I think you would have figured it out already. But then again, Spider-Man grows up in this movie. He has an arc. He gets traumatized. He faces the results of his actions. By the end, it becomes a very emotional movie, and there are so many callbacks. There are so many things that you know for a fact would happen in a Spider-Man movie, and those things are handled with such deep love and care. I just can't put in words what I'm feeling after watching this movie. It's just like, I think when you know the context of the movies, when you know where all of this is coming from, when you know why every scene is there in this movie, when you have read your books and you watch your movies, you would feel amazing about the Spider-Man. Incredible. It just puts everything in perspective. That's why I'm so speechless. Everything is in perspective. Everything that you missed out on those last two story arcs of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, everything that was not so good with Tom Holland Spider-Man, it all just gets corrected by the end. It all just comes full circle, and it'll all just hit you in the face that and now it's all sorted. So by the end of this movie, it's like the perfect incarnation, the perfect version of Spider-Man, the version of Spider-Man that we deserved but never got. Incredible movie. I just feel amazing right now watching this. मैं पहली बार आया हूँ इस थिएटर में आज. I would not have preferred this in the past, but मुझे टिकट और कहीं के मिल नहीं रहे थे और डे 1 पे आना था. Theater vlogging is difficult, guys. There are so many people. I feel weird talking to the camera instead of them. Very weird. So many people. I can't do this. I'm gonna stop now. Voice over ही करूँगा इसका.